Live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
We can find $4 billion for those children, and we should. We can find $2 billion for Chicago. The more children involved, and more have been killed, and more have been shot.
The killings and the shootings continue to mount. Joining us now is a host of NewsOne Now on TV1, former CNN political analyst Roland Martin. And Roland, great to talk to you again, sir. Your piece in the at the Daily Beast about the violence in Chicago and what needs to be done to stop it. You say bring the National Guard.
Yes, in fact, it's pretty interesting when I look at this the reaction from a lot of progressive whites and African Americans who are angry at me. They're on Twitter and all over the place. What's interesting is I've interviewed retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore several times on this topic dating back to September 2013. He's been doing the exact same thing. He went to Chicago saying the same thing. This is the guy, of course, who got New Orleans in order after Hurricane Katrina, as President Bush said, we needed a John Wayne. That was him. And what's interesting is all these folks, oh my God, how did that work out in the 60s? They clearly didn't even read what I said. What Honore said, and which I agree with, he said you utilize the Guard to alleviate other type of acts, duties that the police are doing. He said like duties downtown, and he said what you do is, he said you need the police patrolling the streets, you need checkpoints established. He said you go after the cartels, you go after the folks who are supplying the drugs and the guns. He said as a law enforcement strategy. The issue that you're dealing with in Chicago is a multifaceted one. It is not one thing, but you do have to get control of who said we need to reopen community centers and parks. Well, here's the deal. No parent is going to send their kid to the park out of fear they're going to get shot.
Oh, well,
so in order to confront the problem, you do have to say what is the short-term issue, what's the mid-term, what's the long-term.
No, I have no problem with sending the National Guard, and you know, they asked that question on the news clip we saw at the top. You know, what is the cause? Is it A, B, C, D? And as you said, it's probably A, B, C, D, and E to boot.
Precisely.
But here's one thing. Where are you on tough gun legislation? I heard Dick Durbin on the floor of the Senate the other day alluding to 15 years in prison for those who, I think it was if you sell a gun to someone who uses it in a crime. But how about something that was taken out of the crime bill back in the 90s, in the Clinton years, and that was like if you use a gun in the commission of a crime, just show it. You don't have to fire it. Mandatory 5 years in prison. If you fire it, mandatory 10 years. And if you shoot someone, mandatory 20 years, depending on how bad you hurt them. No, you don't like that? Why?
No, the reason I don't like mandatories because one, you look at the case what just happened. You look at Marissa Alexander in Florida, but you had mandatory minimums. The Florida legislature changed that law recently, saying that wait a minute, it doesn't make sense if you fire a warning shot, you should get a mandatory minimum. That's the problem. So even when you say you just flash it, so I'm going to use her as an example. She was involved in an altercation with her husband, and in the altercation, she fired a warning shot into the ceiling. It was a mandatory, so I got a problem with
No, I understand that, and that was a terrible situation, and thankfully it was rectified. But I'm talking about committing a crime. I'm talking about with the intent to commit a crime.
Here's the deal. The issue with mandatory is there's no leeway whatsoever. Judges have no discretion whatsoever. You cannot factor in any number of things. And so that's the issue that I have with mandatory.
All right, how about this? If you're convicted, of the crime, and then you use the gun in the commission of the crime, whether you fired it or not.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. You have existing laws there. Now, I say you certainly look at those. I've always made it clear that prisons are for non-violent offenders, and people who are violent offenders do need to pay the price for their crime. But the issue is, so again, that's what you have. The problem that I have in Chicago is you have city leaders there who act as if there's only one thing you focus on as opposed to a variety of things. And I got progressives and liberals who are mad at me. Oh, my God, you're asking for martial law, which is nonsense. I'm not. Who are saying, oh, you got to do this, that, and the other. They're also even in denial. They're saying, well, you close the schools. You know what, Steve? I live in Chicago. You know, it hit me one day. I was driving in the morning, and I went, where are the school buses? So I had the then school board president on my radio show. I said, let me ask you a question. Where are the school buses in Chicago? Well, the school buses, they cut the school buses years ago because of cost. One of the problems, Steve, is that you have kids who literally cross gang areas because you don't have school busing. So they have to either ride city buses, which frankly anybody gets on them. When I rode school buses, I was frankly in a safe environment. I got from my home across town to the school and back. That's one of the things, so that's why they created these state passages trying to protect kids to do on the first week of school. That's one of those small things that nobody thinks about and also has an impact in terms of how people are affected by violence.
Let me ask you another question. I heard the police chief on a CBS News report about a year ago when a reporter rode with the cops and they found this guy with a gun and and they arrested him, and then the police chief said this guy was arrested on a gun charge and convicted of a gun crime, spent a couple of years in prison. He was let out simply because there's no space to put these people in jail. So whether the sentences are mandatory or not mandatory, they're letting out people who are convicted of gun crimes and they're repeat offenders.
But Steve, one of the reasons there's no space is because we've got our jails that are filled with too many nonviolent offenders. We are sitting here throwing people in jail for a variety of reasons, people in jail who have drug issues. You even have Republican governors across the country, thank God. In fact, and I've said this before, you have Republican governors who, frankly, are more compassionate in dealing with the issue of this mass incarceration than some Democratic governors who are scared to be called weak on crime. Republican governors are saying, hey, this is costing us a ridiculous amount of money to be housing people in jails who are nonviolent offenders. That's one of the problems. So guess what? If you sit here and say, you know what, we're not going to be just housing everybody in jail, let's examine that, but let's actually keep jail for the people who are these violent offenders. You're not going to have that problem.
Well, I mean, there's a variety of crimes that are nonviolent, and you got to keep people in jail. It's not all drug crime.
Well, but there's a difference between having somebody in jail for 40 years versus 10 or 15 or whatever it is. But there are a number of nonviolent offenders, and the numerous studies have been done. I've talked to Governor Kasich about it in Ohio. I've talked about it with Mayor Mitchell Andrew in New Orleans. I talked about it with different people across the country, and they've said that's part of the issue. The jail should be for the folks who we absolutely need off the streets, as opposed to anybody. All
right, let me let you hear from John Boehner today, talking about the problem at the border and the president's refusal to go there. Here's what he had to say. All right. Well, what he said was that the president needs to take responsibility. He never takes responsibility for anything. What do you make of the fact that the president refuses to go to the border? And to boot, he made sure he had a photo op, which he says he doesn't want at the border, when he was playing pool and drinking beer with the governor of Colorado.
First of all, from a White House standpoint, that was stupid and idiotic to even have a Photoshop of him shooting pool, drinking beer. That was just dumb. Okay, so that was just dumb. But here's the deal. Okay, so Speaker Boehner and others want the president to go to the border. To do what?
Well, why does he go anywhere? Why does he go to any natural disaster?
No. Here's the deal. I'm asking the
I'll tell you what he should do at the border. I'll tell you exactly what. You go to the border, you stand there with the kids in the background, and you say, this is what lies in store for your kids in Central America, you parents, if you send them here. Don't send them here. You use the bully pulpit that will be repeated all over the world over and over again.
So the president can actually say that anywhere. You know what? Here's the deal, Steve. I don't waste my time on useless discussions. And if you have people in D.C., you got Speaker John Boehner, if you're spending your time literally talking about who needs to go to the border as opposed to how do you solve the problem, that's really, for me, a waste of a conversation.
Well, Democrats are having that same conversation. It's not just John Boehner.
And they also, and it's the same thing. Here's what I would say to any member
we got a minute.
Congress.
We got a minute, so go ahead. Yeah.
There's no problem. Who's wasting time. You know what? Spend more time doing your job as opposed to going home, as opposed to, so we got press releases and the media appearances on, he needs to go to the border. Fix the issue, members of Congress, as opposed to issuing more issue. How's that?
All right, but the president needed to land in New Orleans and not just see from the plane, right? That was Bush. He had to go.
No, I'm sorry. First of all, who said that?
Oh no, the whole left said it. The whole left. You don't remember the Katrina moment? The Katrina moment?
I don't speak for the left.
I know, but you said who said that? I'm telling you. Hey, Roland, I got 5 seconds. I gotta go. Thanks for coming on. We'll speak to you soon, Roland Martin, folks. Up next, give me 5. Don't go away on the Steve Malzberg Show.